it has come up in our relationship to where there's brought some, because it brings untrust, right? It questions honesty and things like that. So you know that, especially if you have multiple partners, that can just really impact a marriage. And
Yeah.
how do you what do you think you do with that? Is it just more internal work?
We're gonna get real, and we're gonna get raw, and we're gonna get messy.
26 years later, celebrate our 25th at an awesome renewal of our vows. We praise you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I love you.
I love you.
What a week.
Man.
Is it me, or is it on recording weeks? It seems like everything happens.
We just get hit like from every side.
It is absolutely unbelievable. I like the fact, in a sense, that there is some challenge to, that you're doing something good. You're putting effort into encouraging and trying to help people, and, just putting experience out there and trying to cheer people on, that there's some forces that are not wanting you to do that.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I'm doing something meaningful.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with just the attacks on marriages. It's like the more that the enemy can cause division, can cause disharmony, can just like really, I don't know, put a wedge in relationship. I think that's when he really he's like, yeah. And it's like, and I think that's just kind of been, what we've been kind of experiencing.
I've noticed too is, though we know the enemy, called the devil, Satan in the Bible, you assume that his ultimate goal is to destroy your relationship, which would mean, divorce, ugly separation stuff. But I think there's other tactics as well that he uses to just make you very unhappy. That when people see you and see how you treat each other, that now becomes how good is that? When people are observing how someone is treating their spouse, that alone destroys reputation, it destroys relationships. It doesn't necessarily have to result in divorce for the enemy to be winning, it's so disheartening to me that kind of situation can happen. And I don't know. On weeks like this, I just feel it sometimes. And I am super stoked and excited that we're doing something that we can try to encourage relationships and marriages.
Yeah.
And but sometimes it's just kind of hard.
Yeah, it's always hard to show up when things are a little bit challenging. Mm-hmm. So we're showing up.
We are showing up.
Doing the thing.
And we're happy about it.
Honestly,
absolutely happy about it.
Honestly, this has been the thing that it's like I've looked forward to this week.
Absolutely.
So
100%. Okay. So we have a topic.
Yeah.
We have a topic today. And the topic is, how does your past affect your marriage? Now, when we were talking, we were going over topics. I remember this. Mm-hmm. We were kind of going over topics. We don't generally, just so our listeners know, we don't discuss deep into the topic because we want this conversation to be authentic. That's been the rule, and we do that. But we do propose topics. That's what we do.
Because can you imagine coming into this?
Hey, guess what? This is what we're talking about.
Surprise!
Surprise. Hope you're okay with it. So, how does your past affect your marriage? The first time we talked about it we said, does your past affect your marriage? But then we were like, no, it's an absolute guarantee that it does affect your marriage. And so I'm glad that we kind of changed it a little bit on how it does, because it should be an expectation that it does, because it does. If you think that your past doesn't affect your marriage, you're kind of being ignorant in the fact of the impact that it actually has. I mean, it is true. Our past is part of our story, but it's not the script for our marriage.
What's interesting about that is that it flavors like the way that you see the world, and it flavors tradition. It flavors so much of who you are, but you still have like your personality. You still have so many other factors involved in that.
No, absolutely. And what I like about having the acknowledgement that your past does affect, it is, again, it's part of your story. Your past has molded you in who you are. It doesn't define who you are, but it does inform. It informs who you are. We have the potential to rewrite patterns.
Yeah.
I mean, we have that potential within us to rewrite patterns. We have the potential to heal hurts. We have the potential to build something new together. Mm-hmm. The problem sometimes, though, is it can be intimidating. I know for me, I want to come into this relationship. I want to be your man. I want to be the one that is like you want to, I'll charge ahead and you're happy to go behind my man. Like in my mind, though, that means nothing affects you. That means you do it all right. That means and all of those things. And it's completely and totally wrong, right? But that's how that's how I've looked into it. And I'm sure that some of that has come from where I've come from, my childhood, my family of origins. Okay, let me ask this. What is one thing from your family growing up that you think or you've seen that still affects how you kind of show up in our marriage today?
I would have to say, like, right off the bat, it's like there were things that were said to me that when I was younger that drastically defined me as a woman, as a friend, as a human, as so much of who I was. And gosh, I don't want to cry.
Oh, it's real. Come on, Ron, real. Because this is important. People feel that same. Because you're talking about someone that has either said something about you in developmental years, right? That it's just now this is who I am.
Yes, and so it was probably when I was about. It was probably about like 10 or 11, and two different situations. So I'm sitting at school and I'm probably like in, like third grade. And this girl, which was my friend, and that's what was so hard about it.
Those cut deep.
Yeah. She looks at me and she goes, what did you do to get like that? And I go, like what? And she was like fat.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess I just eat a lot. And, my parents had just gone through like a really hard divorce. I was going between families every other week. So I'd be 1 week with my dad, the next week with my mom. And what I learned is in those formative years, I learned that food was there. Food was my constant. Food was always going to be there.
You can control that.
It was the only constant. And so that became like my safety net. And then I remember on another thing. So these two situations really compounded just how I see myself and how I believe that the world sees me. And my mom and my sister, we were driving in LA, and gosh, it's like so hard.
Well, no, but this is how you know we don't talk about it, because
Yeah.
you would have been ready, right? You would,
I know.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that we would.
Well, yeah, we would have
talk
been ready.
about
This
it.
is real. This is what it is. This is real life for people.
But my mom and my sister started talking about my weight, and mind you, I wasn't like, I was chubby, but I wasn't like severely overweight, but I was fluffy, and they started calling me chub nut, and gosh, and it implanted a root deep inside of me that my value only comes from being thin. My people will like me more if I'm thin. So the idea that our past doesn't define us, or we bring that into marriage, like, I mean, throughout the years, like, I mean, I've probably spent thousands and thousands of dollars on all of the different, gadgets and plans, and you name the diet plan, and I've been on it. But it's like that has impacted our marriage financially, emotionally, like me always looking for affirmation from you, and it's like I've carried that. I've done a lot of work and a lot of healing in that area, but obviously it still hurts.
Well, because those are the roots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are deep. Though, even though you can identify them, which is absolutely fantastic. There are many people that are suffering the way that you've suffered, or suffered in a different way, that have not identified where it came from. They know it came from somewhere, but they have their trigger, right? They have their trigger where when somebody says something or something happens, they have a reaction in some way. So the wonderful thing for you, and I would actually encourage people, if you don't run away from your triggers, actually try to track it down a little bit. Have understand why, right? That's our we always say, always ask yourself why. Why am I feeling this particular way? Why did I have that type of reaction? Because it's always tied to something, right? It's always tied to something, because it affects how, things like that. It affects on how we give and receive love. It goes through those filters, how we handle conflict. I mean, let's be honest. And then how we think about commitment. Think about that. Like, certain things can happen in your past, or how you've grown up with your parents and stuff like that. And commitment may look different through your lens because of where you came from. You bring that into your marriage, and now, and these are all unsaid things. These are things that are happening inside. Mm-hmm. These are things that are happening in such a way to where you are just reacting to your own makeup, and the other person has no idea, generally, for the most part, especially in the beginning, has no idea of where you've been. And you could be reacting to something in the moment, but it's actually because of something way far back.
Well, how many times have we had conflict? And how many times have we discussed things and we're not really discussing that issue? We're discussing something completely different, because we're actually recalling a past hurt or a past situation that was harmful or hurtful. It's like there's so many other things that are going on behind the scenes that it's like, normally when a conflict happens, it's just like, whoa, time out. Like, what is this actually really about? And we've had conversations. We actually had a conversation this week that it was like I was upset over something, and it was like, oh, you know what? This is actually probably, this wouldn't normally bother me, but it's because of all these other external factors that it's like, this is challenging for me right now. And it has to do with going inward and really looking at yourself. And it has to, you have to unearth some of the unhealthy beliefs that we have, because, you know, those beliefs like define our outcomes and our behaviors. It's like in health coaching, I had this phrase that was taught to me, and it's our beliefs create our thoughts.
Yep.
Our thoughts create our feelings, and then our feelings create behavior, and behavior creates our reality.
Wow.
So I'm going to say it again.
Yep.
So beliefs create thoughts. So my belief was that I'm fat. So
That's your basis. That's the basis of where you're starting.
So those things that were said to me created that rooted in belief.
Totally false base, but that's where you start.
Yes.
Wow.
Because of hurt
No,
and pain.
absolutely.
So most of our beliefs are rooted in hurt and pain.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless we're using the Bible to counteract them.
Yep.
But so beliefs create thoughts. So now I think that everything that I do
Through that filter.
I'm fat, or I look fat, or when I try on new clothes, I'm like, well, of course I look fat. So then your thoughts create feelings. So now I'm sad, or I'm self-conscious, or now I'm not walking in confidence anymore because my feelings now have taken over because of my original thought and belief. And then your feelings create your behavior. So now my behavior is going to start acting out. And this could be in rebellion. So I could actually start binge eating, or I could be super snarky. I could so now my behavior is going to be a result of my feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. Right?
Wow.
And now my behavior creates my reality. And I think that this is the part that it kind of ties all together, is because now my reality is that I am fat, I am overweight, I'm never going to be anything other than that. So then all of my thoughts, beliefs, and feelings and actions are going to go through that filter, and I am going to self-sabotage. I will never be able to overcome because my original belief is rooted in a lie.
See, and let's just take, okay, and that's just talking about weight. Put it in any
context.
But yeah, put it in any other context, any other rooted, hurtful thing that now 15, 20, 25 years later is now your reality, and you don't even see it. It's so deep, it's dug in, it's taken root, and you can often go into, tell me if I'm wrong, autopilot, to where you don't even know you're thinking these things. It's just, this is my normal life.
Well, and take it a little bit of a step further. What you're actually doing is you're looking for evidence to confirm your belief wherever you go. Wherever you go. So we're just going to stay on the weight thing.
Wait, hold on a second. So what you're telling me is the belief that I have, unconscious, it's just the world that I live in, I'm now unconsciously looking to confirm the ugly belief that I have in my reality.
Yeah. So taking that idea of the weight.
Okay.
So I walk into a room and I'm right off the bat. Like, girls can attest to that we do this. Or maybe I'm the only one. But it's like you assess the room and you say, am I the prettiest one? Am I the most overweight? Am I the most fit? And you're constantly ranking yourself. I think this is probably why girls are we have the mean girl syndrome, is because it's we have so many thoughts and feelings that are overcoming in our head. But that is the belief. So you're looking for so if someone was to say something negative to me or about me, I'm now, because of my belief, going to be, well, if I was thin, maybe they wouldn't say that.
Oh my gosh.
And so these are the types of things. And now I know we're focusing a lot on weight, and that's just as an example.
Because that was your reality.
Yeah. But it's then you take like an angry father, and how that evolves, and how now you believe your belief is that anger gets me the results that I want and desire. And so now it's again going through the beliefs, thoughts, feelings, all of those types of things. And now all we're doing is worried about our anger affecting all of these other areas of our life.
Which, I mean, that is a reality for me, right? That came from, anger is a real thing for me. We've talked about that before. That in my childhood was, that was the anchor. The anchor was to get angry. That's what I learned. That's what I experienced. And that's what I took hold of and, took it forward. So based on your experience, having that as in your past, as that thing that took hold, and then taking it forward, if someone were listening and they know that there's something in the past that's really affecting them today, what would your advice be to them in trying to either heal that or explore that? What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's really based on, what kind of trauma we're talking about, or like what kind of past are we talking about? If we're talking about like abuse or something like that,
That's different.
I would definitely say get a good therapist.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that especially in the Christian world, like we can say like, oh, like just give it over to Jesus. And there's beauty and truth in that. But I do think that having a good therapist and getting in counseling, I think is so key. And honestly, I think that therapy should be free. I feel like it should be mandatory. Like just as much as like, your school credits in the high school. Like I think that everyone should have to take like a 3-credit class, and it's just like you get 1 semester of free one-on-one therapy. Like I just think it would be so killer, because I would say that everyone can benefit from therapy. But if therapy isn't where you're at, or if you're just kind of like, oh, it's not that in depth, maybe what I would say is really start asking yourself those hard questions and examining why you're responding in a certain way. I had talking about a therapist, one of my therapists actually said that if your response in conflict is anything but the fruits of the Spirit, then you have some unhealed pain, or you have a wounding that needs healing from the Lord. And I think that when she mentioned that, I was like, wow. So that really caused me to start going on a journey of really examining what it was in my life when I had those responses that were not a response of the fruit of the Spirit, to be like, okay, if I'm not responding in love, patience, peace, kindness,
long suffering.
Especially long suffering. See, I purposely left that one out. No, but there's this thing within us that we don't want to confront the hard things because we're programmed to not tackle pain. We're programmed to run away from anything that hurts, which is, I think it can provide safety for us at times. I think that it's good sometimes because it's like it's necessary is what I'm trying to say. But I do think that that walking through pain allows you to heal, allows you to be a healing vessel for someone else. I know that the people around me that have really done their inner work have just blessed me so much, because it's like that iron sharpens iron. It's like we're both moving towards healing and restoration.
When you say inner work, explain for somebody who doesn't know
Yeah.
what that
No, that's a good question. So
could be woo-wooey.
yeah. Yeah. I would say that the inner work is asking yourself those questions and asking yourself the why.
Yeah.
Going back in and recalling memories, recalling things that have happened. I've had some trauma in my life that I wasn't even aware of until I was probably like 18, and then I realized like, oh, did this happen? I remember calling my sister and being like, what, did this happen? And she was like, yeah, I thought you were too young to remember.
Wow.
And so I think that there's the inner work is going back and examining and looking at all the different aspects, looking at who were the male figures that really spoke into my life, who were the female figures that spoke into my life, and what were their voices saying? Were their voices even kind? Were they judgmental? Were they harsh? Those types of things, because then you may not even recall certain things, but if you can recall the tone of voice that that person of influence had in your life, I think sometimes that even helps to kind of dissect a little bit of maybe something that you're feeling that or experiencing in today that you may not even be aware of.
That reminds me, when I was in therapy for a while, I had gone through, I remember I told you that situation with my dad, where we were walking away from the baseball field. And I always remember this one particular thing, that all I felt was disappointment. I felt that he was disappointed in me. And I carried that for years and years and years. And going back through it, either some talk therapy, some IMDR, just,
EMDR.
EMDR?
I think so.
Okay, you're probably right. Going through all of that, really kind of realizing that if I would have followed the thought all the way through, what I actually found was, after we left that game, we went out to eat. And one of the things about my family is we didn't have a lot of money. We were, we weren't, I'm not saying that we were necessarily poor, but going out to eat was a special thing.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
And we wouldn't go out to eat if, like, Dad was in a bad mood or something. And so what I really started to realize is that, wait a second, that we wouldn't have gone out to eat if something went wrong. We actually went out to eat. And so I kind of replayed all of that in my mind to actually find out, like, wait, no, there was no disappointment.
Wow.
I've been carrying this thing my whole life, thinking that he was disappointed in me. Not to say that he wasn't at some time, but the anchor that I had was this moment that I remember. And then when I fully think of the whole thing through, I find that, wait, no, he wasn't disappointed, because we wouldn't have gone out to eat. That's for dang sure. I know that for certain. And so it freed a lot in me that would have stayed locked, would have stayed really down deep. And, talking those things through is kind of like taking a tiller in the garden of your life and just tilling up. And it's scary. It's
Absolutely.
because it's painful.
Yeah.
It's 100% painful. You're not going to avoid the pain, but the pain in this instance, in our instance, not to say for everyone's, disclaimer, we're not therapists. We don't know if it's good or bad. In our experience, that pain actually, just like there was gain from that. That pain led to gain in our life, and it was really good for us to go through that time of remembering and understanding that. And I the thing, just as we're talking about this, I guess I would encourage people how to talk to their spouse when you have having an honest conversation, just saying, I know I have stuff in my past that is probably affecting how we interact. And, you know, because the reality is, and we know this, understanding each other actually builds compassion. Like,
Yeah.
compassion rises up when you're like, even when you say, I don't know how to do this. I don't understand. I know that I'm reacting, or maybe you don't know you're reacting, but start on the side of believing that your spouse is, we've always talked about this, that you're on my side.
Yes.
Like, that's the heart. And you've
we
given,
are not against each other.
there has been no evidence whatsoever that I could come up with that you're against me. Ever, ever, ever. And so starting from the position of saying my spouse is on my side and trusting them with this part of my childhood, this part of my upbringing, it creates intimacy. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I don't often talk about what's going on with me. We can talk about that later. But what it does, what you've communicated to me, is that it creates intimacy. These are things that I don't share with anybody, but I'm sharing them with you, you know. But also other parts of our past, there's like past relationships. I mean, relationships that you have. Now, for us, we got together so young that we didn't have many relationships, but we had, I think, enough that could have brought some, I don't know, ugliness into our marriage. Like, okay, have you ever caught yourself reacting to me based on something that someone else did in the past?
Yeah, yes, but probably not a relationship. Like
Okay.
because you're talking about like
Another relationship.
like another romantic relationship. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we were so young when we got married that I didn't have a lot of in-depth relationships outside of really us. Like we shared something that was really special and unique, and that's what was different. And so I didn't really, I would say that my relationship with my dad probably flavored our relationship more than anything. I was a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And like, I remember when we were first married, the first couple years, whenever anything would break or if I ever had any problem, I would just call my dad.
Yeah.
I'd be like, Dad,
Yeah.
I need
Yes,
you.
I know.
I need your help.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying like, I can do things too.
I'm a man.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like totally not like leaning and pressing into you. Because it's like I wasn't used to you always being there, but my dad always was there for me.
It's true.
And so it's
true.
and being daddy's girl, like, because I was pretty much an only child. I did have a half sister, but my dad was the guy that was always there in my life. And so I would say that my relationship with my dad flavored our relationship a little bit more than any past relationship.
And that's true. And that's true in our situation.
But most people aren't like that.
No, that's true, because most people have romantic relationships in the past that they bring into their relationships, right? We've talked about this before, the heartstrings, right? Every relationship, especially if it's sexual, there is a heartstring there that's tied, no matter if it was flingy or it was long-standing, there is a heartstring there. And there are, especially the painful ones, they can leave emotional fingerprints on your marriage, and you don't even know it. You don't even know that that's happening. And one of the things that I think is important is but we haven't experienced this, but remembering your spouse is not your ex, right? Your spouse is not like, it's not your ex, you're in a brand new thing. This is a brand new story, brand new opportunity, right? And but you so know and understand at some level, because I think we have things in our past, even before we were married, that were done. I know on my part, being a little unfaithful in our dating relationship, that has come up in our marriage.
Yeah.
Like though it wasn't an intercourse unfaithfulness, there it has come up in our relationship to where there's brought some, because it brings untrust, right? It questions honesty and things like that. So you know that, especially if you have multiple partners, that can just really impact a marriage. And
Yeah.
how do you what do you think you do with that? Is it just more internal work? I would imagine it's being open and honest. That's scary. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think being open and honest and vulnerable with your partner is always, you can never go wrong unless they're unsafe. So I will
There are exceptions,
say,
and that's what's hard about this. Yeah.
There are small exceptions. I mean, I say small in quantity.
Yeah.
Not
in action.
not in action
yeah.
at all.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
because if anything, I would say that it's ginormous.
Yeah.
But the ones that, so if I was like super honest and vulnerable with you, and you were like, well, that's not that big of a deal, it hurts. Now the wound that I've already exposed is now a double, triple wound, because now I trusted you with my wound and you just stomped on it and you devalidated it, and you so quickly moved on. And so now it's an emotional trust that is broken, and an emotional trust, when that's broken, it takes a long time to heal, because it's like, I have to trust you baby steps with a little bit more of me. Here's my heart.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with a friendship. It's the same thing with relationships and spouses. And I mean, it's funny because it's like we're using the example of like the baseball field, or like the comments about my weight. We're using those things as examples, and in the grand scheme of things, they may seem small, but I've actually experienced a lot more big trauma in my life. But those are the things that stand out to me the most.
Wow.
Because it was that emotional
Yep.
wound. I would almost, and I mean, and this is just for me personally, I don't even know that I could, I don't even know that I'm going to say that. I think that the emotional wound, it goes deep. And I think that that's why the Lord talks so much about like wounds from a friend can be trusted. That there's a oneness when you come together with your spouse, because my heart is now your heart and vice versa. It's like this, it's this shared journey together that I think makes a marriage and a relationship beautiful. But when that trust is broken, I think it's hard to repair. If we're talking, an affair, if we're talking an emotional affair, if we're talking, emotional distrust of just like, I trusted you with that piece of my heart and you didn't manage it well. It's like there's so many pieces, and we're not even talking about like physical abuse or like drug abuse or molestation. There's so many things that can happen in like to us that we didn't say yes to, we didn't allow in our life, and we were just a byproduct of that. And now we bring that into our relationships. That's hard.
The one thing I do want to say, because these are all heavy things, right? You can get yourself into a cycle that you don't feel that you can break from. And I just want to encourage anybody listening in that healing is possible.
Yeah.
Healing is possible. I like, we don't know the situation, but there's always a potential for healing, but it comes from a place and an environment that it has safety and grace as its present state. And so either if you're on the receiving end or you're on the giving end, when you come with the intention of bringing, this is a safe place, I'm going to give you grace, I know this has come from before now, and it's us together, I think it's an encouraging thing to know that healing can happen. And I mean, if you find yourself in a relationship, you're overreacting or you're withdrawing, maybe we talked about a little bit about the self-awareness, right? Ask yourself, is this a now thing? Am I reacting to a now thing, or am I reacting to something that has happened to me, right? And one of the things, and you brought it up before, the inner work, the self-awareness, the knowing of yourself. I know it sounds strange, but the knowing of you, knowing how you've grown up, it's really the first step to walking in the direction of wholeness, walking in the direction of change, walking in the direction of healing. It doesn't happen overnight. We know that. But knowing and having the hope that progress to healing is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible. Now, disclaimer, again, I'm actually going to bring it up. You have trauma, right? You have traumatic things that are happening, unprocessed trauma, things that you and I have not necessarily experienced, whether from childhood or actually in adulthood. They come to the surface often in the way that you love, in the way that you argue, in the way that you connect. And those are things that need to be processed. I can only imagine how scary it must be, because the encouragement would be to go to a licensed therapist, have them walk you through, find a safe place to, communicate and talk these things through. You can talk to your pastor, start talking about it with safe people so that you can begin to process these things, because they do come to the surface. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, they might be holding you down. They may be stealing your joy. They may be robbing you of your hope. And I just have to encourage you, don't ignore the trigger. Don't ignore trace out that trigger, right?
Because a lot of the times our reactions and our outward behaviors are actually an indication of something going on inside. And that's good. It's that deeper thing that's happening that's kind of just bubbling to the surface. Yep. So, when we have that initial quick response, or, when we're triggered or we're looking for a way out, or I shut down most of the time. So that's usually my thing. So when that's happening, it's what is going on inside, and asking yourself, where do I even feel it in my body? What thoughts am I having on that? How, what emotion am I having? Because then it helps you kind of narrow down and get to the root of where it is. Because a lot of the times we just want to clean up our actions and just say, well, I'm just going to have better self-control. I'm not going to get angry anymore. And the reality is that it's now we're just going to jump to the vice of control instead of actually
gonna white knuckle through it.
Yeah. And it's what really we need to do is go deep and start cleaning up the inside, because when we do the inner work and when we do that in-house cleanup, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's when our outward actions kind of follow suit. That's when we're like a healthier human. That's when, I mean, a lot of the times too, like our bodies physically carry stress, and if we and we may not even know it. And so I think that those types of things, like focusing on the inward instead of so much on the outward control that we tend to grab a hold of, I think is really key for walking out that healing as well.
I think that's you're right on point with the outward action. We always want to try to change and control that, which is good, but it doesn't start from the outside. It really starts from the inside.
Yeah.
And also remembering that healing work strengthens a marriage. Like when you're walking through it together, it doesn't threaten the marriage. It actually strengthens a marriage. And that's something that I have had to learn, that the inner junk that I have and processing it with you is not a bad thing. It actually brings us together and it strengthens our marriage. Obviously, help from therapists and stuff like that, those are all good, and we do that. But there's also the encouragement that walking through this with your spouse is a great thing for your relationship for the most part. Again,
Yes.
a lot of disclaimers in this
Yeah.
in this episode.
Because I do want to say that when you start cleaning up the inside, it's like cleaning out the garage.
Oh, yeah.
It gets worse before it gets better. And so I just want to kind of give
That's a
someone
great point.
give someone hope that it's like, if you've never gone to therapy before, or if you're not used to that, it can be a little jarring. I remember the first time I went to therapy, I'm sitting there and I'm going, why? I thought I was supposed to feel better after coming. And it's like, I actually feel so much worse about myself. I feel worse about my situation. And it's because you're tilling up the soil. You're processing and you're working out some of those things that we have been stuffed and buried for so long. So I think that's just my word of encouragement for anyone that's maybe on the fence on therapy or haven't really done it. It's okay if it feels worse before it feels better.
Because it's most likely going to happen that way.
I mean, in my experience.
I certainly know because the same thing, I was slow to get in therapy, but then when I went, it was like, it's good, but I'm getting confronted on some stuff,
Yeah.
And talking about this has been a great topic, and it actually goes deeper, and it goes pretty far. I mean, when you think about things like personal patterns and habits that you bring in, like I know like a habit for me or a pattern or thought that I had when we came into marriage. Our first argument, I think, in our marriage that we had when we got married in the trailer, I'm like, where's my socks, right? I had this expectation that wasn't communicated to anybody. I just had this expectation that I brought into the marriage of like, well, I thought you were going to do like the laundry and you were going to do all this. And it's like, I was having an expectation on you that you didn't know, right? And I am now frustrated, and this is all because of what I'm bringing into the marriage. See, being ignorant of that you're bringing in things that are unsaid, not knowing that you're doing that is such a disservice to your marriage. Go even farther. Spiritual background. Our spiritual backgrounds are completely different.
Yeah.
And I come in with an expectation like, hey, we're doing Jesus. This is what we're doing. Not that you didn't come in like that, but you didn't grow up like that. Like yours is completely different. And just think about coming into, that's where the Bible talks about being unequally yoked. Well, that's basically what that means is one person's going after Jesus and the other person isn't. The Bible says it's not a winning combination. Not that it can't work. It's not what it's saying. But what it's saying is it's not really a recommendation in doing that, because there's going to be conflict and expectation going into the marriage that It just didn't need to be like that.
And what I love about that picture of being unequally yoked, and this was taught to me in high school, because again, I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so I didn't even know what a yoke was. I was like, what is that? And it's the harness that they put over the ox
Good.
to
Yep.
plow the fields.
Yep.
And
They put two side by side,
two
right?
side by
Yeah.
side. And so when you're unequally yoked, I just loved this picture, because this is what happens is one's going hard for Jesus, or one has strong values, strong morals. It doesn't even have to be
It's true.
It doesn't even have to be
That's a great point.
like Jesus focused.
Yep.
And what's happening is the weaker one actually pulls back, and so you end up going in a circle, and you're just plowing in a circle, and you actually end up burying yourself.
Yeah.
So that picture of being unequally yoked is actually a really beautiful one within marriage, because you have to ask the hard questions. You have to get real, and you have to be vulnerable, and it needs to be this give and take. If I'm just sitting in our relationship and I'm just like, I'm just the vulnerable one, and here's all of me, and then you're just like, oh, good job, babe.
Oh, good on you.
And it's like, and I'm not
Which
getting,
has happened before.
yes, we've gone through seasons,
Yeah.
and I would have to say that those are the seasons where I feel most detached from you. And because you want to finish the race together. You
Yeah.
want to run at the same pace. And I'm okay with pulling back sometimes, but I just need to know that we're going forward, and that we're not stopped, or you're not on a bike and I'm running, you know.
Absolutely.
It's like I want to know that it's like we're moving in the same direction. And I think that that's one thing that has really worked for us with our past and bringing those things. I think we've been in seasons where we've both been very unhealthy, and it's reflected in our marriage.
Yep.
And then there's also been seasons of where we've really kind of done that work, and we've tilled up the things. We've had those hard conversations of like, hey, are we still in this? Like, do we want to continue being married to each other? And a lot of that is rooted in the things of our past.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And that is just a reality, because if a perfect marriage was perhaps modeled, maybe it wouldn't, like, especially for me, maybe it wouldn't be so quick for me to be like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this anymore, you know?
So based on our topic, how does your past affect your marriage? What would be your closing encouragement for those that are listening?
That it can get better. And I think that this is one of those hard topics and hard situations, because you could be one conversation away from that breakthrough. You could be, you know, one date away from being able to have that turn. You know, it's like there's that picture of like the iceberg, and it's like you think that it's like all you have to do is go over this. Wait, I think I'm.
Well, no,
getting
the
this
iceberg
backwards.
part, it's on top of the water, it's small. Below
Yes.
the water, it's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But wait, then what's that? What does it mean?
Well, in other words, below the surface is where all the junk is, where all the stuff
Okay.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it
So
does-
it's internal. It's
Yes.
the internal. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
So it does work.
Yes, no, it worked.
But you know, I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Well, I think you were absolutely on the, because that's how we want to encourage someone, is to say it can get better.
It can
It
get
absolutely can get better. Your past, it shapes you. Absolutely, it shapes you, but it doesn't have to define your marriage. Healing is a journey. It's a journey. Most times you don't finish the journey. In some seasons you do. That's great. But I would say we would both agree the most beautiful part is you don't have to do it alone. That's the beauty of marriage.
You got a built-in partner.
That's right. Right. Now, as people of faith, we believe that our past doesn't have the final word, right?
Mm-hmm.
God does. Now, that doesn't mean that we ignore the past, but it does mean that we aren't defined by it,
Right.
which as people of faith, we are very much encouraged by that, because we believe that through Christ, there is healing for every wound. Even the deep ones, there's healing for that. There's redemption for every regret. There's grace for every weakness. That is encouraging. But even if you're not a person of faith, healing can happen. It's one foot in front of the other, showing up, doing your part. Again, disclaimer, in most circumstances. But keep pressing forward. Keep growing together. And trust is the thing that is the foundation that takes you forward.
Yeah.
And this was a great topic, and it makes me think more about, as I'm thinking about it, more about my past and how my past has informed our marriage. And really, just even in our study and doing research and stuff like that, it's really enriched me in thinking, wow, there's a lot that we bring. There's a lot that we bring from our past.
Yeah. It makes me think of our kids, and I'm like, oh gosh, what are our kids
Oh,
going to
my
bring into their
goodness.
marriages?
Oh, all good stuff. All good stuff.
It's all going to be great. They're
Yeah,
not going to need
no,
therapy.
totally different with us.
Actually, all of our kids have been in therapy.
Yeah, they have. How about we pray?
Yeah.
Father, thank you for today and for this time, Lord. This topic of the realization that the past that we've had, Lord, that you see has been brought into a marriage. And Father, what I'm asking for our marriage and for the relationships that would be listening, that they would be drawn together to walk the journey together, and that there is hope, especially hope in you. But Father, we ask that you would bless those relationships, Lord, that are just taking one step forward to understanding that their pasts are affecting today and to work through it together. We ask that you would bless them in that journey. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I love you.
I love you.